Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita Karir, and my colleague Shubhani Gharath. And let's now put the spotlight on the other big story that we are tracking here on India Tonight. Well, India has revved up its rare earth mission and it's raring to go. The cabinet has approved a kind of a scheme to promote manufacturing of rare earth permanent magnets with an outlay of nearly 7,300 crore. The scheme aims at establishing 6,000 metric tons each year of integrated rare earth permanent magnet manufacturing in the country. In fact, under the scheme, the total capacity will be allocated to 5 beneficiaries through a global competitive bidding process. Each beneficiary will be allotted up to 1,200 MTPA of capacity. Shabani, so this is going to be a game changer as far as the country's rare earth magnet segment is concerned.
And the scheme comes just at an opportune time for India as we eye Aatmanirbhar in global manufacturing space. Global markets are in fact heavily dependent on China for the supply of rare earth, which is critical component in production of EVs, aerospace and defense. In fact, China supplies over 60% of global rare earth needs. With this move, India will lessen the dependence on the imports from China and capture a greater share of rare earth magnets supply chain. The scheme includes 6,450 crore as sales-linked incentive for over 5 years, along with a 750 crore capital subsidy tapered down. Well, first, let's listen into what Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said post the cabinet meet.
आज एक रेयर अर्थ परमानेंट मैग्नेट्स स्कीम REPM स्कीम अप्रूव हुई कैबिनेट में. माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अप्रूव किया इसको. इसमें फोकस रहेगा एंड टू एंड कंप्लीट इंटीग्रेटेड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सिस्टम बने, भारत में इंटीग्रेटेड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी बने. इस पे करीब 7,280 करोड़ रुपए का इन्वेस्टमेंट होएगा. 7,280 crore rupees will be invested and the focus will be on the entire value chain. It will be an integrated manufacturing facility. और केवल एक नहीं, up to 5 units will be established. Up to 5 units will be established, each one having 1,200 metric tons per annum capacity.
All right, so that's the Union IT and I&B Minister speaking about this big scheme that India has, of course, launched today, and remains to be seen what the industry's reaction to this is going to be and whether this will reduce India's dependence on China as far as rare earth segment is concerned. Remember, India's dependence on China with respect to rare earths has sort of created disruptions, not just for India, but also several other countries have been dependent on China, which controls 90% as far as rare earth segment is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, we also had the Chief Economic Advisor of India, V. Anantha Nageshwaran, speaking on the cabinet approval of the rare earth magnet scheme. Let's listen into what he had to say.
Well, but obviously it's important. It's a long-term goal that we have to become self-sufficient in these areas, because we don't want our manufacturing and growth aspirations to be held hostage to the shortage of these materials due to whatever factors.
Well, to speak more about this, we have Saurabh Agarwal, tax partner, EY India, and then we are joined in by Vinnie Mehta, Director General, ACMA. Welcome to this conversation. Now, let's first go across to my colleague Prakash Priyadarshi for more details.
Well, it's a confirmation of our news break as the Indian Cabinet has approved rare earth permanent magnets incentive scheme with an outlay of rupees 7,280 crores. So very significant development coming in. This scheme is very crucial in order to achieve Aatmanirbharta as far as rare earth magnets are concerned. The scheme has been approved for 7 years, and the production unit will have to be developed within the next 2 years. This is very crucial amid supply side disruptions, and various sectors are going to get benefit. To get at the structure of the scheme, where the government is focusing on developing entire value chain from extraction to production of rare earth magnets. Along with that, if you look at the sectors such as defense, auto, aerospace sector, electric, among others, are going to get a benefit. Along with that, the government is moving ahead with the target to achieve Aatmanirbharta. As per the government's estimate, the domestic requirement of rare earth magnets are going to be doubled by 2030, and therefore, government is moving ahead with a clear objective to achieve Aatmanirbharta, cut down import dependency by announcing a separate incentive scheme for the production of rare earth magnets. Along with that, the cabinet has also given its nod for the extension of Pune Metro with an outlay of rupees 9,858 crores, where Maharashtra Metro Rail Corporation Limited has been appointed as implementing agency. Last but not the least, the cabinet has also approved two new rail projects with an outlay of rupees 2,700 crores.
All right. Thank you very much, Prakash, for bringing us all of those details related to this 7-year scheme that the cabinet has announced as far as rare earth magnets are concerned. And to discuss this and more related to this policy move, I'm now joined by Saurabh Agarwal. He's a tax partner at EY. And also joining us along with Mr. Agarwal is Vinnie Mehta. He's the Director General at ACMA. Thank you very much, Mr. Agarwal and Mr. Mehta, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET. Now, let me come to you first, Mr. Mehta. Now, India imports 90% of its rare earth magnets today, but to what extent will this scheme help reduce Indians' dependence on China for rare earths magnets? And in fact, we have spoken over the past couple of months, and you have very vocally also spoken about how India needs to become self-reliant. So does this scheme essentially answer all that you've been looking for?
Well, we would like it that way for sure, because as you just very rightly pointed out that the country depends 90% on China for the permanent rare earth magnets, and I mean, it's not just used in the automotive sector. Automotive sector definitely is a big consumer. We consume almost 800 metric tons of rare earth magnets every single year. And then there are other sectors, as you mentioned, the defense sector, the aerospace sector, and other allied, like the windmills and stuff like that. So, in April, China started imposing export control on export of rare earth magnets. And then, there were overtures that they would be banning technology also. So that is a huge, huge issue. And honestly, China is the only country in the world that is producing it right now. Other countries are now making efforts to produce it. So in some sense, we really, really need to make sure that we're not dependent on somebody who would sort of literally close the tap off and you are left high and dry. And the automotive industry is a very significant contributor to the GDP. We contribute 7% to the GDP, and you cannot afford that sector to suffer. So it's very important that the industry and the government work together and make sure that we are self-reliant, Aatmanirbhar, as much as possible. We do understand that, we are a global value chain, but at least strategically, we have to make sure that we are not vulnerable. We've suffered very heavily during the COVID times, so there was a semiconductor crisis, and we've learned our lessons well. And I think we need to make sure that the industry continues to grow, continues to be self-reliant, and is a continuous industry.
And as Mr. Mehta, very rightly pointed out that, we had suffered during the semiconductor shortage, and also one of the most impacted sectors because of this rare earth shortage, as Mr. Mehta rightly mentioned, has been the automotive, specifically at a time when, we were going the EV way in a big way. Having said that, Saurabh Agarwal, in the past, you have mentioned how, disciplined implementation for this scheme's success is required. Can you also elaborate a bit more on that?
Came up with the advanced chemistry cell scheme as well, which was like a RFP. It was like an international tender, which got allocated based on technical as well as financial criteria. I think whatever we are hearing from the press release and what we can see is that a similar tender will be issued as far as rare earth is also concerned. It's very important to understand that when it comes to rare earth magnet, there are 3 processes which are involved: upstream, midstream, and downstream. As far as upstream process is concerned, some companies and some government organizations in India are already working in that particular area, which is called as rare earth oxide. Midstream is something where the companies are not existent in India as of now, or they have very minimal work which is going on. And the last stream is the application stream, which is the downstream, which is like used in electric vehicles, used in renewable, used in consumer electronics, used in defense, which is again there in the country. So therefore, the government, when they say that they're doing an integrated mix or an integrated facility, and they will give this particular tender allotment only to 5 companies, I think the intent is very clear to promote economies of scale and help them with the required subsidies in order to compete with the neighboring countries. But at the same time, what is important is to look at the gestation period. They're offering a 2-year gestation period in an industry where the technology still is not available in the country or is at a very nascent stage. If you look at that, I think that's the area where needs to necessarily push everyone so that they are able to deliver in a time-bound manner and they are able to set up the shops in 2 years' time. This can be by way of going to other countries, doing road shows, and finding the right tech partners for them. And I think it's a very good move as far as the government is concerned. I think they have been very concerned around this area. Yeah. So they have been very concerned around this area.
Right. In fact, you brought about that point about competing with China. You brought about that point about competing with China and other different countries that are looking at developing their own rare earth capacities domestically. We'll come to that point in just a bit. But first, let's take a look at what my colleague Raghav Kalra has filed with respect to the kind of stocks. And that will be impacted tomorrow when the market opens on the back of this announcement. Let's take a look at that story, and then we'll continue with our discussion.
Stocks to watch out for, as Government of India has given a nod to 7,280 crores to promote manufacturing of sintered rare earth permanent magnets, REPMs. The stocks to look out for under the scheme will be Hindustan Zinc, moving positively and has secured India's first private sector monazite rare earth mining block in Uttar Pradesh with direct rare earth processing capabilities, and it will benefit from its increased demands from domestic rare earth supplies under the PLI scheme. Well, another stock to look out for will be Gujarat Mineral Development Corporation, GMDC. It's a stock that's moving positively, and it's building India's first dedicated rare earth processing hub and actively participating in critical mineral auctions. Its direct operational expansion and its strategies will help this stock to again move positively in this particular sector. Another stock to look out for will be NLC India, moving positively. It secured its new phosphorite and limestone blocks with plans to source rare earths domestically and overseas. Its dual sourcing strategies and new mining block position by NLC will help it to capture more market, moving positively again. Vedanta is also moving positively, the parent company of Hindustan Zinc, with aggressive expansion into critical mineral and rare earth mining processing. Hence, Vedanta will be a stock to look out for. Another stock which has recently undergone IPO is Midwest Limited, moving positively. It's India's largest black galaxy granite producer and is expanding into high purity quartz, and hence will be a stock to look out for under the PLI scheme proposed by the government. Secondary beneficiaries that we should be looking out for will be National Mineral Development Corporation. It has global rare earth exploration plans. Coal India, which has its collaboration with India Rare Earth Limited. Magnesium Ore India Limited, which is involved into diversification into magnesium to rare earth conversions. Hindustan Copper and Sona Comps are also to look out for, as they are applicants, PLI applicants for rare earth magnets. Bharat Forge is also a stock to look out for because of the impact this particular scheme will have on the auto sector. JSW Group, ONGC, All India Sundar Magnesium Iron Ores, and IMFA are also stocks to look out for in terms of secondary beneficiaries when we talk about.
You know, very interesting point that was made by Saurabh Agarwal was that, India will have to look at other partners. Now, China maintains dominance by keeping rare earth magnet prices very low, barely 5% above the raw material costs. So, given this aggressive pricing, Mr. Mehta, how effective will the government's capital and operational subsidies be in making domestic production cost competitive also for the manufacturers over here?
Yeah, so the whole objective of the policy is to be price competitive, and therefore, the China prices will be a benchmark, because you don't want a situation where, let's say right now, China has an export ban, or it is very reluctantly issuing licenses. Post-April, when the export ban came in, 50 plus companies went and applied for licenses. And as we all know, in last probably 3 weeks ago, just about 4 or 5 companies have been given licenses. So considering the fact that China is so reluctant in giving licenses, it's controlling the technology, and you will really be vulnerable, because once you do make the investments, you sink in the investments, and then lo and behold, they open up and they're very willing to give you magnets at throwaway prices. That is definitely a challenge. It's a risk, and that also sort of has to be countered with the policy that we are coming out. Otherwise, the policy will go waste, the investment will go waste. So you have to continuously be in benchmarking with China prices. And therefore, the incentives that are being offered are one for capex, and the other is sort of, you can call it an OPEX, or you can call it as a subsidy for purchasing. It will not be called a subsidy because it won't be WTO compliant in that sense. So you need to have some name for it, and that's how it will be. And yeah, so you have to be price competitive. Otherwise, there's no point setting it up.
Absolutely. But Mr. Mehta, these are just initial phases. The government has just announced a scheme. We'll have to see when the guidelines are really rolled out and the kind of plans and strategies that companies come up with to sort of make use of this subsidy scheme. But let me come to you, Mr. Agarwal. Given that countries across the globe are enhancing their partnerships, that in fact was a key highlight of President Trump's Southeast Asia visit as well. Now, does India's strategy place it competitively amidst global competition from China, US, and Japan as far as magnet technology is concerned?
Yeah. So, if you look at India is the 5th largest reservoir as far as rare earth minerals are concerned. Therefore, the only thing which we are missing as of now is the complete upstream and a midstream capabilities. If we are able to get those capabilities, one, we become Aatmanirbhar, which is self-reliant. And I have already started using this phrase time and again, that we will try and make sure that we are making other countries Bharat par Nirbhar. So I think we are moving from that phase of Aatmanirbhar to Bharat par Nirbhar, and the way the bilateral agreements will get signed, and you can see the way the Indian government is negotiating on the bilateral agreements. I think this is the way forward as far as the global trade is concerned, because in the current global tensions which they are there, I think the bilateral trade agreements will play a key role to decide how much export a particular country will be able to do.
Over to you, Mr. Mehta. Securing advanced technology for processing is or can be a major hurdle. How quickly do you anticipate Indian companies can bridge this technology gap, so to speak? And what role will foreign collaboration and joint ventures play in this process?
So I'll put it the other way around. First of all, you don't have technology, so you will have to get into collaborations. And I mean, you're not alone. Sort of there are other countries in the world that are willing to come forward and work with you, because honestly, every country in the world wishes to de-risk, and the backdrop being that in this particular case, China was a single source supply. So we are working with many countries across the world, be it Japan, Germany, Australia. There are the people willing to give certain technologies, and our entrepreneurs are also sort of very well aware, and they want to also sort of turn this crisis into an opportunity and be of service to the nation and to the industry. In fact, there have been several rounds of meetings with the government, with the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Everybody's worked very hard on it. And I'm very confident that now that the scheme is coming out, we should sort of, work towards self-reliance. I mean, this would be really very, very helpful in that direction. Yeah. So all that mathematics has been put in place. Yeah.
Right, sir. So you're suggesting that everything has been well thought of when it comes to this policy push that the government has given with respect to rare earth magnets in the country. But let me also ask you, what more does the government need to do in terms of the kind of investments and policy push to make India a formidable player in this rare earth space that we're currently operating in, given the fact that many countries are now getting into the fray? You have the United States, which is coming up with its own set of policies domestically. Yes. Then you have Japan. And of course, we are seeing, many countries sort of of aligning with each other as well. So this space is all set to become hyper-competitive.
Yes, it is. But also do not forget that we are ourselves, at least I speak from a perspective of the automotive industry. We are a huge automotive nation. We produce 5 million cars. We produce 24 million two-wheelers. We produce 1 million commercial vehicles. So as such, our domestic market compared to rest of the world is also really very humongous. So if nothing else, our domestic market can sustain the kind of investment that we are looking at. And honestly, again, you should not forget that we are a global value chain, but we also need to identify very carefully who our friends are, who stand with us. And I guess that's what the government is working on. Saurabh alluded to a lot of the bilateral agreements. And they are essentially being worked out with countries that are sort of, friendly to us. They understand and they're willing to partner with us to be competitive. So, I mean, honestly, India known to be very competitive in manufacturing, and we wish to be the global hub for manufacturing of all sorts of technologies, including automotive, electronics. And this is another step in that direction.
Saurabh, simple question. What critical milestones do the government and the industry need to hit to ensure, a viable, qualified supply chain within the scheme's 7-year time frame?
Before I answer your question, I think I'll take to Vinnie's point. Last time when the advanced chemistry cell scheme came in, it was a great scheme, but somehow our startups who have been able to develop niche technology, somehow they have not been able to qualify into the scheme. So while the RFP is awaited, I still hope that this time the government would have taken care of some of those startups who really have the technology with them. They want to invest and they are backed by the investors. Now, coming to your second question around how the government's timeline of 7 years should look like. In the government's timeline of 7 years, they are saying 2 years you need to set up the shop, and thereafter you need to make a particular value addition in a particular time frame, which is likely to be defined into the RFP. And based on value addition which is happening or the localization which is happening within the country, I think the incentives will get linked to the value addition. So I think the way the government is trying to emphasize is that the more you do a value addition, the faster you do the production, the higher incentives you will get.
Right. Let me also take another question to Mr. Mehta. Mr. Mehta, when we talk about the rare earth value chain, there are several components. So there is the component of mining, there is the component of refining, and of course, magnet manufacturing. Amidst all of these segments, where do you think India can sort of, leverage its position, and where does India have a leverage in terms of all of these segments that exist in rare earth materials value chain?
So as of now, the way I've understood the supply chain, on really, when you look at the upstream and the topmost upstream, we have government agencies that are engaged in terms of mining and producing rare earth minerals. And at the extreme end of the value chain, at least in the manufacturing value chain, where you can manufacture the magnets per se, I would say that those are the two ends of the manufacturing chain that we can be competitive in. The mid part is sort of needs to be figured it out. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for this discussion. Of course, a huge fillip to the entire automotive sector as the rare earth magnet scheme gets approved. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on. Owners of tens of thousands of properties in England valued at more than £2 million are set to be hit with a surcharge of pounds 2,500 from 2028 in what has been dubbed as a mansion tax. The annual charge will come on top of existing council tax and will increase depending on the price of the property with 4 separate bands. These, in fact, will go from the lowest band of 2 million to 2.5 million pound, with the highest for those valued at 5 million pound or more, who will pay a £7,500 a year, with the bulk of all the properties affected in London.
Absolutely. In fact, Shibani, now it's time for us to take a look at some news that's coming in from the United States. Well, the U.S. jobless claims have declined to their lowest levels since mid-April. Initial claims have decreased by 6,000 to 216,000 in the week that ended November 22nd. And that has suggested a rebound in the labor markets, which essentially is which is typically bearish in the push for a rate cut. However, despite this development, Bitcoin has risen on the back of the data release, and it has reached $87,000 from an intraday low of around $86,400. But there is more news, I believe, is coming in as far as the MEA is concerned, and the case, Shibani, that's related to the recent detention of an Indian citizen is concerned.
Detention of the Indian citizen in Shanghai airport. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal took a strong stance against detention of an Indian citizen, reiterating Arunachal Pradesh being an integral part of India. Let's listen in to him.
We had issued a statement. Essentially, I was translating the statement that we had made earlier. Yesterday, we made a statement. You would have seen that regarding the arbitrary detention of an Indian citizen from Arunachal Pradesh who was holding a valid passport and was transiting through Shanghai International Airport on an onward travel to Japan. We want to say that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of India, and this is a fact which is self-evident. No amount of denial by the Chinese side is going to change this indisputable reality. At the same time, I said that we did take up this matter. We did do a strong demarche with the Chinese side, both in Beijing and in Delhi, when the incident took place.
Well, that's a reaction that's coming in from the MEA spokesperson, Mr. Randhir Jaiswal. Remember, this on the back of the fact that China has essentially been looking at normalizing ties with India. India has also been looking at normalizing ties with China. And in fact, we have seen several diplomatic moves that have been made, several policy moves as well that have been made on the back of that policy decision that the leaders of both the countries essentially took last year. However, this recent interruption that has happened between India and China, we'll have to see the larger implications of that. But the MEA spokesperson stating that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India and dismissing all the claims that were made by the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Affairs Ministry. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on this edition of India Tonight. Goodbye from me and, of course, my colleague Shibani Gharath. Thank you very much for tuning in to India Tonight.